I thought I'd have a walk out the Stavely Nature Reserve. That's she don't want to come out. She's not well, you know. I don't know how far we'll get because weather don't look too promising. God, it's all gates. Black sheep. Morning folks. Well, we had a load of rain again last night, but it's stopped again now. Whether we'll manage to get out today or not, I don't know, but I did manage to get out yesterday and did a bit of filming in the nature reserve, so I'll put that on. Now I left you last video telling you about how I learned to tune a piano, and that Frank came and looked at the last piano I tuned at Bradford Grammar School and said it were alright, and that were it. I tuned all the pianos in the shop and even went out and tuned pianos, but I have to say that to be honest with you, it took me 10 years before I would really call myself a piano tuner. So although Frank, I think he was being very generous, when he said I could tune. I could tune, but there's tuners and there's tuners, and it took me 10 years before I could say I could tune a piano. Anyway, someone, a subscriber, asked me, can you tune a piano if you can't play a piano? And the answer to that is that you can tune a piano if you can't play, but you can't prove a piano if you can't play. And whenever I tuned a piano, I always proved it by playing it. Now, how did I learn to play a piano? Well, I'll tell you how. One day, I used to find my favourite piano in the shop and busk on it. You know, busking. Just playing sort of chords. One day I was sat at a piano busking, and an old gentleman came in, and I left him alone. He came in and wandered round the shop, and I left him alone for a bit. And eventually I stopped, because I thought if he wants to play on one of them, if he can play, he won't want me playing. So I asked him I just said, if there's anything I can help you with, just let me know. And I left him. Anyway, eventually we met up again in the shop, and he said to me, you want to learn to play that piano? And I said to him, who'd teach me? And he said, I would. So I said, are you a piano teacher? And he says, yes. And they called him Phil. And so began my piano lesson. And I used to go to Phil every Thursday morning, I believe, for an hour. And he started me off on book 1. So we started off on book 1, and I'd take this book home and plonk it in on a piano, and I'd play it, and I'd memorise it. Well, not much to memorise, but it was very thin. Whatever tune this was, it was a very thin sound. So first of all, I just added an octave with my left hand. So I mean, you know, if you're playing a B with your thumb, you play the B with your little finger, an octave down. It learnt me how to stretch my fingers by doing that. And I'd go back the next week, and he'd ask me to play what he'd given me to learn, and I'd play it, and he'd say, that's not what I gave you to learn. And I'd say, it is, but I've just added an octave with my left hand, that's all. Oh yeah, who taught you to do that? I said, well, nobody. It was just, it sounded thin. I wanted to fill it out a bit. Okay, so he says, well, let's jump a bit here. And he jumped to about book 3 or 4 or something, and I went home with that, and that were not much thicker, so I memorised that as well. And then I'd had maybe 3 notes in my left hand, if they sounded right. I didn't know what they were, but if they sounded right, I'd had 2 or 3 notes with my left hand. Just a chord, some kind of chord. I don't know what it was I was playing, but it sounded all right, and it filled it out. So I'd go back, same thing again. So this went on for a bit, and one day I went back, and he sat down in the chair. He said, all right, play me what you've learnt. So I played it, and halfway through he said, right, stop. So I stopped, and he says, now where are you on the music? And I couldn't tell him, because I wasn't doing it from the music, I was doing it from memory. But he couldn't get me to play sight read. I couldn't do it. I hated the dots. All I wanted to do was memorise it, so I could focus on what it sounded like. Somehow I couldn't do both. I couldn't concentrate on the music and listen to what I was doing at the same time. I'd rather get the music in my head, and then I could think about what I was doing, what it sounded like. So he scrapped the books, and he got this, I don't know whether it was George Gershwin version of Autumn Leaves. It had about 4 flats in it, I think, because he says, now you can remember black notes as well as white, can't you? And I said, yeah. So he took, I took this home, this song, Autumn Leaves. The autumn leaves drift by my window, you know. And I started playing that, and the hair on the back of my head stood up. The sound was absolutely beautiful. I just thought, I've got to learn to play this. Just sounds so good. And so I did. I memorised the whole song and played it, but all from memory. So this went on. He gave up trying to teach me to sight read, and we went on Chopin waltzes, Debussy, because I like Debussy, and I could, within a year, I could play Clair de Lune from memory all the way through. And once I got going, then I'd start to play music I liked, Beatles stuff, pop songs. Well, not just Beatles, you know, by the time I get to Phoenix, and, you know, Bread, Wichita Lineman, yeah. Oh, great songs that were around in charts at the time. That's sort of stuff I like to play. Moon River, stuff like that. And so that's how I learned to play the piano, and it took about a year for me to learn to play the piano. So I could play and I could tune, and you need to be able to play. When you can tune a piano, but you'll never know whether it's in tune if you can't play it. You need to be able to play it to prove it's in tune. And whenever I tuned a piano at a customer's house, I used to carry about, I don't know, maybe 10 songs in my head, and I'd play them. People like that. I like to hear me play the piano when I tuned it. And that got me more customers. And in the end, after years and years, I think I had 600 customers that I used to tune for. Right, we'll leave it there. By the time I had the film that I filmed in the country park, we'll have enough there. Okay, see you tomorrow. I hope. Bye.